All right, so have you ever stopped to wonder what actually keeps your favorite apps and websites from just collapsing? I promise you, it is not magic. It's all about architecture. Today, we're going to break down the 4 pillars that really decide whether a digital service soars high like a skyscraper or just crumbles into dust.
Our source material kicks this off with a really powerful analogy, and I think it's the perfect way to frame this. Just imagine any big IT system is a skyscraper, right? You wouldn't just start throwing up walls. You need a rock-solid blueprint, one that's ready for anything, from a slightly windy day to a full-blown earthquake.
So, yeah, that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you actually engineer these massive digital structures so that they're strong, they're safe, and they're ready for whatever comes next? Well, it all boils down to 4 fundamental ideas, or as we're calling them, pillars. Let's get into the first one. Okay, our first pillar is all about the building materials. See, instead of creating one gigantic, messy, monolithic structure, modern IT is all about using smaller, independent blocks that are designed to fit together perfectly. Now, this whole approach has a name. It's called modular design. The big idea here is to take a huge, super complicated system and just break it down into these manageable, self-contained little pieces. Each piece or microservice has one specific job to do, and it does that one job really, really well. And here's why that's so brilliant. The real payoff is just how resilient it makes everything. If one little piece needs an update or, just breaks, you can fix it or swap it out without having to tear down the entire building. It just makes everything faster, way safer, and it means different teams can all work on different parts at the same time without tripping over each other. For example, think about any big online store. The system that handles your credit card payment can be totally separate from the system that checks if a product is in stock. What does that mean? Well, they can completely overhaul the payment processor without ever having to touch the inventory system. It's smart and it's super efficient. Okay, let's move on to our second pillar, which builds on that first one. Any good skyscraper has to have things like backup generators and sprinkler systems, right? Well, a great digital service needs the exact same mindset, a completely solid backup plan for when things inevitably go wrong. In the tech world, we've got a couple of key terms for this: redundancy and failover. Redundancy just means you have duplicate backup parts ready and waiting. And failover, that's the cool part. It's the automated process that instantly switches over to that backup the very second the main one has a problem. And honestly, most of the time, you as the user never even know what happened. So what's the point of all this? It's to make sure the lights stay on no matter what. For the services we all depend on every day, this isn't just some nice little feature, it's absolutely non-negotiable. It's what guarantees a service stays available and can survive some pretty nasty outages, which keeps the business running. And here's an example I think we can all get behind: online banking. Your bank doesn't just have all its computers in one building. No way. It has copies, or servers, in totally different parts of the country or even the world. So if a massive power outage or a storm hits one city, the whole system just automatically fails over to a server somewhere else. And the result? You can still get to your money. All right, pillar number 3. So far, we've built a flexible skyscraper with a solid backup plan. But now we have to turn it into a fortress. And here's the thing about a fortress. You don't build it and then add a lock to the front door at the end. No, you build security into every single brick from the ground up. This proactive way of thinking is called security by design. It means that security isn't some afterthought you bolt on at the end. It's a core part of the blueprint itself, something you're thinking about at every single stage of development, from the deepest foundation all the way up to the rooftop antenna. So how do you actually do that? Well, it all comes down to building in layers. First, you've got encryption, which basically scrambles all the data so it's unreadable to anyone who shouldn't see it. Then you've got something called role-based access control, or RBAC, which is a fancy way of saying people can only see and do what their specific job requires. And finally, you have intrusion detection systems, or IDS, which are like 24/7 security guards constantly watching for anything suspicious. A healthcare system is a perfect place to see this in action. Of course, all the sensitive patient data is encrypted, that's a given, but it goes deeper. A doctor might need access to a patient's entire medical history, while a nurse might only need to see the info for today's treatment. It's all about giving the right people the right access and absolutely nothing more. Okay, we're on to our 4th and final pillar. So, you've built this strong, resilient, super secure skyscraper. Fantastic. But
What happens when your small building becomes a huge hit and suddenly you need to handle 10 times more people? Well, you'd better hope you built a foundation that was ready for that kind of growth.
And that is exactly where scalability and flexibility come into play. Scalability is all about being able to handle more users, more data, more, well, everything, without the system even breaking a sweat. And flexibility is about being able to adapt and bring in new technologies down the road without having to rebuild the whole thing.
So how do they pull this off? Honestly, cloud services have been a total game changer here. They allow systems to automatically grab more computing power when traffic gets heavy, and, just as important, to scale back down when things get quiet to save money. This dynamic, elastic ability is the secret to handling a world that is completely unpredictable. I mean, here is the perfect real-world example. Just picture a giant online retailer during a massive Eid sale. For a few hours, the traffic to their website might explode by 100 times the normal amount. An old, rigid system would just crash and burn. But a scalable system? It just automatically adds more power to handle the rush, and then once the sale's over, it quietly scales back down. Seamless. Okay, wow, that was a lot. So let's just pull it all together with this little cheat sheet. Take a second to let this sink in. You've got your modular design for flexibility, you've got redundancy for reliability, you've got security by design for protection, and you've got scalability for growth. These are literally the 4 legs of the table that hold up any strong digital service today. And hey, to make sure these ideas really stick with you, just think of them like this. Modular is like building with Lego blocks. Redundancy is having a spare tire in your car. Security is the alarm system that's built into your house. And scalability is making sure your foundation is strong enough to add a few more floors later on. Simple, right? But incredibly powerful. So there you have it, the 4 pillars holding up this invisible digital world that we all rely on every single day. They're the blueprint for a world that simply has to work. And the question I want to leave you with is this. As you look at your own digital world and how fast technology is changing, which one of these pillars do you think is about to face its biggest test?